Hey everybody, I'm Pierre Camus, aka the Roto Chef, here to represent RotoBaller and help you win your fantasy football league in 2021. That's what it's all about. I'm going to talk to you today about the Hero RB strategy, not Zero RB. Let's not get things confused. Look, Zero RB has been around a few years and it can be successful if done the right way, which is kind of tricky to pull off. You have to pick the right running backs in those mid to late rounds, and that's obviously easier said than done. Hero RB is also sometimes called modified zero RB, but let's face it, that's just a little harder. Doesn't roll off the tongue quite like Hero RB. Hero RB sounds a lot more fun. So let me tell you what it's all about. Instead of zero RB, which implies that you're not taking running back, which is just not true. It means you're waiting, right? The first few rounds where everybody's loading up on running backs. Instead, in a zero RB draft, you're going to wait till round maybe 6 or 7. Could even be later if you have the guts to pull it off before you take your first running back. Meanwhile, you're stacked at receiver. Maybe you filled in your tight end, your quarterback, and then you're going to take chances on running back because you know it's the most volatile position, the biggest bust rate, especially in the early rounds. So kind of playing it safe everywhere else and then taking chances at running back. Again, it could pay off. It could also blow up in your face. Here's what's different with Hero RB. The idea is you have one guy. You have one running back you're taking early. Could be first round or second round. Typically the first because, let's face it, the first round is just filled with running backs. That's it. So you take your one guy and then you wait. And then you're going to stack wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver. You might get a tight end if you find one at a good value, one that you think is worth it. Maybe a quarterback, who knows. But you are waiting then after you take your one guy at running back. And then you wait till 6th, 7th, 8th, however long you want at running back till the value is right. And then you're going to backload and you're going to take an RB2 that is somebody who isn't starting in most leagues, but you have faith that that guy can carry the load because the rest of your team has such a high floor. Let me show you an example of what I'm talking about. Be easier for you to see. All right, so what I did is ran through a mock draft here, 12 teams, let's assume full PPR. One quarterback, two running backs, three receivers, a tight end, a flex, and some bench spots. Didn't go super deep here just to show you the basic premise. So let's pretend I have the 4th pick here. Now, in almost every draft you're going to see this season, running backs are going to dominate the first round. Maybe not every pick, but at least 8 or 9 running backs will be taken. So the first few picks, all is running back of your choice. You're going to see McCaffrey, Cook, and then some sort of mix between Henry, Kamara, Taylor, Barkley, if you trust him, Chubb, Jones, whoever it is, all right? So you're going to pick your guy and you're going with him, right? Who is your hero at running back? You want to take a chance on Jonathan Taylor, think he breaks out. You trust Barkley's health. You think that he's still one of the top players in the league. Maybe it's Kamara. I went with Kamara. I think I have him as my number 3 running back because I feel like that offense has to run through him. He's going to get a ton of targets, especially with Michael Thomas out. But it doesn't matter, right? You pick your guy and you go with him. Who is your hero running back in the first round? Now, once that's established, you see what happens here. So look at my team. I'm going wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver. And then, yes, even though I have my first 3 receivers set, I'm going receiver again. Calvin Ridley, talked about, he's one of my must-have players. Legitimately think he could finish as the top fantasy wide receiver. And if not, he's almost a shoo-in to be a top 5 guy. And look, being taken outside the top 5 receiver. But regardless, whether it's him or you have a guy like McLaurin, whatever. So you get your best receiver available, and then you get the next best receiver available. Keenan Allen as a wide receiver 2 in PPR, that's pretty good. All right, and then even though I have a lot of choices still of sort of starting running backs, I could have taken a chance on a guy like, well, let's say Darrell Henderson is going to be the guy in LA. I don't trust him as much. There's a lot of risk there with that running back. Is Hunt going to be a guy who really leads you every single week when he's the RB2 behind Chubb? He's a solid RB2, don't get me wrong. But I really think Chris Godwin, again, could be a top 15 receiver. He was actually the wide receiver 15 in points per game, fantasy-wise, last year. He just missed a few games because of the pinky and COVID and other issues. So I have, as my wide receiver 3, a weekly starter, is Chris Godwin. I feel much better about that than I do the chances Darrell Henderson being a weekly RB2. All right. And then you think, well, you already have your 3 receivers. There's a flex spot. And again, in a full PPR league, you want to prefer to have a receiver instead of a running back in your flex spot it's a lot safer, but also you don't want to just play it safe. I get that, right? You need a league winner, a guy who could be somebody who breaks out. You can still get that guy. You don't have to take him now. You don't have to pick that running back now. Deontay Johnson, again, this is a guy who could be a wide receiver too. You get him as your fourth receiver and weekly flex play. That is really solid. You're still going to get your running back, so don't worry about it. All right, coming on the way back, personally, I'm thrilled to get TJ Hawkinson there. You don't have to take a tight end. You can wait on that. Again, I've talked about this before. You go early at tight end or you go late. But to me, Hawkinson is a potential top 3 tight end. He's a guy I want on all my teams. Another must-have. I actually would have been happy with Fant there too. But I'm going to the tight end. You don't have to take a tight end before you can take your next running back. But got 4 wide receivers, quality players there, and Hawkinson a much better value than the other running backs who are left. And then, believe it or not, yeah, I'm going receiver again. Courtland Sutton, I can't believe it. Can you imagine Courtland Sutton as your 5th receiver? What does that tell you about the state of your receiving core? If he's on your bench, or a guy like Deontay Johnson or one of those is basically not playing, you think that's a wasted spot. It is not. What are the chances? All of those guys going through the season without getting hurt. You have bye weeks. There's COVID. There's a lot of things that could go wrong. Courtland Sutton is a lot safer pick than any of these running backs that are left. Do you really think Chase Edmonds ends the year with more fantasy points than Courtland Sutton? It's possible. I'm not going to say it's not possible, but it's not likely. Ronald Jones, also in a timeshare there. We don't know what's going to happen with him. Raheem Mostert might lose his job, even if he does have it in the first place. So again, I'm taking a much safer pick, but also a guy who's just going to score more fantasy points. That's the name of the game. Now, let's keep going. And you see on the way back, now I strike. Not going to lie, I would have loved to have Trey Sermon in this draft because he's one of my guys too. But Michael Carter, the same situation, a rookie. Of course, a lot of times these breakout running backs are going to be rookies. So take a chance on a guy who could get the job and run with it, literally. So I got Michael Carter here. That's the perfect kind of guy. You talk about 0 RB drafters. That's the type of player that you target in those middle rounds. Well, Hero RB, it's the same thing. Look how loaded. Let's go back and look at what I have here. Rounds 2 through 7, stacked at wide receiver. There's not even a question I have the best wide receiver core in this league. I have one of the best tight ends, and I got Alvin Kamara, so I have one of the top running backs. So now who's my RB2? That's all you're talking about. You're one position. You are beating everybody else in the field at every spot except for your RB2. And look at what I'm going to do. Now I'm attacking running back like crazy. I got Michael Carter, could break out. Damien Harris, the starting running back in New England. He's still there around, 9? That's ridiculous. I'm getting a starting running back at that range. Is there really going to be that big a difference between Damien Harris when all is said and done and James Robinson, who went a few rounds earlier, and Ronald Jones, who went a couple rounds earlier? Maybe not. Maybe Harris outscores all of those guys. And then on the way back, Jamal Williams, not an exciting pick, but you know what? He's probably going to be the starting running back in Detroit. DeAndre Swift has been hurting. They've been talking up Jamal Williams. That's actually a pretty smart pick there with no risk. You're talking about a 10th round pick. Rashad Penny, a guy that, again, there's risk there because of the health, but go back to other guys I've been talking about here. David Johnson, you're telling me there's not risk there. Miles Sanders, you're telling me there's not risk there. Okay, so this is a guy who could pay off. I'm rolling the dice, but you're always doing that at running back. So now I have 4 guys who could hit, who could fill in that RB2 slot. All I need is one of them to pay off. That's it. Just one. All right. And meanwhile, the rest of my team, you see, I'm a guy who likes to draft late quarterback all the time. Some of these players are going to draft 2 quarterbacks when they don't need to. It's a single quarterback league. I am perfectly happy with Ryan Tannehill, who is a very safe quarterback, but also someone who is probably going to finish as a top 10 quarterback. Is he going to outscore Pat Mahomes? No. Does he need to? No, because guess what? I'm beating everybody everywhere else, and I still have somebody who is right up there competitive with everyone else at that quarterback position. So this is the Hero RB method. Again, you're waiting, but it's not waiting on your first running back. It's waiting on your second running back. And meanwhile, I'm loaded at pretty much every other position. Guarantee you having that wide receiver core that is better than everyone else by far is going to put you at a distinct advantage. And you know what? The worst thing is you got a 5th receiver that's sitting on your bench that's piling up points. You trade him for a running back, and then you're even farther ahead of the game. Okay, so this hero running back method, I love it. It's not going to happen every time, right? You don't have to go in with a mindset thinking, I have to do this. I'm going to wait on my second running. You don't have to do this. It depends how your draft shakes out. If you have a really good running back who sits there in round 2 or 3 and you really want to pull the trigger because it's just too good a value, you do it, right? You're not going to let Najee Harris fall past the 3rd round. But in this case, in a lot of cases, the running backs will be flying off the board. So you know what? When everyone zigs, you zag and you stack your team elsewhere. All right, hopefully this helped you out. Again, you don't have to use this strategy in every draft you're in. It may just not make sense. Depends always on your league settings, the format, the competition, and just the way things shake out on draft day. But consider it. This is definitely a strong alternative to just loading up on running backs your first couple of rounds and then watching those busts come in. You don't want to put all your team's hopes and dreams on the knees of a running back who could get injured at any time now. Wide receivers are a lot less volatile, and trust me, in a full PPR league, they can carry your team. So try Hero RB, at least give it a chance and see what you think. All right, guys, good luck in 2021.